Now, up until recently, the only fan options we've had on iCUE Link is the QX120 and QX140 fans. But Corsair recently released the RX120 RGB fans, and they did reach out to me and asked if I'd be interested in taking a look at that and sharing that with you. So I said, sure, send them on over. That's definitely a fan that we would be interested in taking a look at. So anyways, I've got a number of those here with me today. So just a quick interruption. While I was editing this video, I noticed that Corsair has come out with the iCUE Link LX120 RGB fans. They're going to come in 120 and 140 millimeter fans, both in black and white. Now, this fan looks like it's going to be kind of a cross between the RX fans and the QX fans. They're going to have 18 RGB LEDs, so it looks like they're going to be around the outer perimeter again, and a little bit of a different edge to this fan. Now, the RX series fans come in both 120 millimeter and 140 millimeter RGB versions. Both of those sizes come in both black and white. Now, on the Corsair website, I did find also an all black non-RGB version in 120 millimeter and 140 millimeter. Now, for the 120 millimeter version of the fan, you can find these in a 3-fan starter kit, both black and white. And the starter kit comes with an iCUE Link hub and all the cables to get you started. You can also buy them individually just as an expansion fan if you just need to add one more or two or whatever. You can buy them individually packed. Now, for the 140 millimeter version of the fan, the starter kit comes with 2 fans. And again, that includes the iCUE Link hub and all the cables to get you going. You can also purchase them as a single fan pack. I will leave all the affiliate links to these products down below in the description. Check those out for the latest pricing, as the pricing does vary on these from time to time. There's always some sales and deals. So anyways, check out those links for more information. Now, if you're familiar at all with the QX series of fans, you know that it's kind of a pricey fan. So one of the first things that will jump out to you about the RX120 series fan is it is considerably cheaper. Now, I won't say substantially cheaper because it's still not a cheap fan in its own right. It is an SP fan, meaning it's suitable for use behind a radiator. But this fan has the Corsair airflow vanes in the back, which are supposedly supposed to help it kind of focus that airflow and that pressure onto a specific spot, namely your radiator. Same as the QX fans, these do have the magnetic dome bearing, which also helps with noise and things like that. These fans also do have some removable accent pieces on them. The one side has a Corsair logo written into it, and it's just kind of painted on there, but it's kind of a transparent little accent piece. The other side is also removable. It has nothing on it, so you can kind of swap those around. Now, one thing about this little accent piece is it does protrude out ever so slightly, maybe a millimeter on each side. So if you're going to be putting it into a case where it's right on at 120 millimeters, that little accent piece could interfere with that. But the good news is you can remove it. It's totally okay to run it without it inside of the case. It doesn't leave a big gaping hole when you remove that. The fan only does have 8 LEDs on the center hub, so it doesn't have as much RGB lighting, obviously, as the QX120 fan, but it does have RGB lighting. Unless you choose to use one of the fans without RGB lighting, but that's one of the cost-saving features of that. There's no RGB lights on it. Now let's talk about the quick install screws compared to the traditional PC fan screw. Now I will say, you definitely can get this screw in there much faster. Now, I think for the normal installation, that's not really a big deal either way. It's not that hard to turn a screw a couple of extra times. But it is cool. I do like the fact that it goes in nice and quick and easy. Anyways, check that out. But overall, it's kind of a very cool feature. I don't mind the innovation in that area. Now, getting this little accent piece out of here is actually quite easy. There are little notches here. You can put a screwdriver over that. But where it protrudes out from the case, you can just kind of grab it and just pull it, and it just comes right out. It's kind of a, not real flimsy, but it's a flexible piece of plastic that just kind of grips in there. So it pops out really easy. Behind that accent piece is just another clear plastic piece that completes the case, obviously. And so no airflow is flowing out around this thing. So you could run it without it. It looks cool enough like that. Or you could modify this like we talked about earlier. There's probably some creative things you could do with this. But you could move this to the back side. You could remove it altogether. You could flip these around. Whatever aesthetic looks the best to you, go for it. But when you're ready, just position it back in there. And it just kind of clicks back in. Nice and easy to do. Now, when you get these out of the box, you will need to remove the protective covers on the front of the hub and on the rear. And this is actually a pretty nice hub, actually. Even though there's no lighting here, it looks really good. It's pretty solid. The only thing in the back that I really do prefer on the QX120 fan, aside from the RGB lighting, is just on the RX120 fan, the cables are exposed back here. It's not a big deal. It's functional. This is pretty typical and traditional of how we've always done it. We do have the rubber grommets installed to kind of dampen the vibration. Now I want to cover the iCUE Link setup just real briefly again. We've already talked about it on this channel, but if you're new to this, again, refer to those videos if you want. I'm going to start with the iCUE Link hub. Now it does magnetically attach to somewhere inside your case. It comes with a power cable, and this power cable connects to a PCI Express connector on your power supply. The other connector here is for the USB cable, so it does need a free 9-pin USB header, either on your motherboard or on a powered USB hub, preferably. The other port over here is a little 2-pin port. The cable is not included for this. It's not intended to be included for this. What that is an RPM feedback cable. You'll see this cable included on the AIOs that are iCUE Link enabled. And all it is a single cable, and that gives the RPM signal back to the motherboard so that it can be happy that the CPU fan or the pump in this manner is running just fine. Take your first iCUE Link cable, and this is going to be the longer one in most cases. It doesn't have to be. It doesn't matter which cable you use first. It's just whatever implementation works. But primarily, I think your first one's going to be the longer one. This has got a 90-degree connector on the one side and then just a standard straight-through connector on the other side. The connector fits in either direction. It's like USB-C in that manner, in that you can put it in the one way. And then, of course, if that doesn't fit, you can undo it and you can flip the fan around and it will fit the other way, and it works the same way. And then you connect this back to your hub. Or you could reverse the cable and the 90-degree angle go into the hub and the straight through connector go into the fan. But the cable in the setup is really versatile. It just goes in any direction, any cable can be used, and it doesn't really matter. But just make the cable fit your case. Now you can get online and you can buy other different size cables with different connectors, and you can kind of customize it to fit your installation. And that's one of the major benefits to iCUE Link overall. But basically, you're going to connect up your hub, your first cable to your first fan, and then the fans are going to just daisy chain and click together using the little connector pieces, and you can click all three of them together as I've had here on the desk. You could just put two of them together and then use the second cable that's included and move the third fan in another direction, and then you can just keep daisy chaining fans onto that system up until you hit 7. Again, a little asterisk to that is you can go more than 7, but the system will kind of automatically dim the lights, and I've had that happen to me a couple of times, as the power requirements change for that. But maybe I'll do another video on that particular subject coming up. So anyways, the kit right out of the box allows you to say put 2 on the top and then 1 in the back, and it gives you that second cable to kind of, so that you don't have to have all 3 of them connected together, which is pretty cool. But the more fans you buy, the more cables you're going to have. And of course, if you need some custom fit ones, you can go online and purchase those cables straight from Corsair or Amazon or wherever. The cables are not cheap. So before you begin a big build though, I would recommend really try to think through where those cables are going to be. Now let's talk about some of the differences and the things that you lose by choosing RX fans over the QX120 fans. Now, because these are cheaper, obviously they had to cut out a number of different things here, and let's go ahead and talk about that. So one of the things you lose out on is kind of the aesthetic of the fan. The QX120 fan looks really good, meaning that it's got RGB lighting on the outer rim of it. From the rear of the fan, it looks better because it's got, kind of a nice enclosed hub and everything's covered up. And you get RGB lighting in that center hub that just looks better overall. And on the outside of the fan, obviously you got a couple of strips on both sides, and the RGB lighting looks really good there. Now some of this will be in the eye of the beholder, so I'll let you make your own judgments as to which fan looks better. It's not that the RX fans look bad or anything, it's just there's less lighting here and kind of less accent pieces. Now, one of the major aesthetic pieces that you lose out on is the time warp function that the QX120 fans have. Now, what that is you can see here, you can set it so that it kind of looks like the blade is either standing still, moving slowly, counterclockwise or clockwise. And what it's doing is it's just kind of flickering the lights in tune with the RPM of the fan. It just gives this effect of it just kind of standing still. It's very cool. I honestly don't use it all that much, but it is kind of cool to flick on once in a while. And of course, when your friends are over, you can definitely impress them with that. It looks really good. You lose out on that on the RX120 fan, so just be aware of that. The other feature you don't get is a temperature sensor in each and every fan. So the QX series fans have a temperature sensor there that you can manipulate in iCUE and set fan curves and things like that on. So if that was important to you, it's missing in the RX series fan. But let's recap what you do get with the RX series fans. Now again, it's a cheaper fan overall, which is definitely a plus. It is an iCUE Link enabled fan. Let's not forget that, meaning it works with all of the same hubs and all of the same cables that the QX series fans do, and it gives you all of the benefits of the iCUE Link system. So much so that I've got them daisy chained together here. You can mix and match them however you want. It just shows up in iCUE and you can adjust each one of them individually. Anyways, that whole system is still there. It looks really good. As we'll get to again in the specs here in just a second, even though this is a lower RPM fan, it's showing the specifications as being higher in both the CFM and the static pressure. So let's talk about the specifications of the RX series fans. Now the sound pressure is rated at 10 to 36 dBA. The pressure is 0.12 to 4.3 millimeters H2O. CFM rating is 10.4 to 73.5. And the max RPM, it's rated for 400 to 2100 RPM. Now let's contrast that to the QX120 series fan. It's rated for 10 to 37 dBA. The pressure is 0.17 to 3.8 millimeters H2O. So the RX120 is rated at a higher pressure. 16.44 to 63.1 CFM. Again, the RX120 fan beats it in that category. 400 to 2400 in the RPM range for the QX120 fan. So overall, if you're looking at just the written specifications, the RX120 looks to be a little bit better fan. Let's talk about the 140 millimeter versions of these fans real quick. So for the RX140, the sound pressure is 10 to 36 dBA. Static pressure is 0.15 to 3.75 millimeters H2O. Airflow is 17.9 to 94.7 CFM. And the RPM rating is 400 to 1700 RPM. So a little bit slower on the fan speed, but that should equate into maybe overall a quieter fan, but you do get a higher airflow rating. For the QX140 fan, the sound pressure rating is 10 to 37 dBA. Pressure is 0.19 to 3.5 millimeters H2O. And the CFM is 12.1 to 82.5. And the RPM rating is 400 to 2000 RPMs. So again, the RX140 fan has a little bit lower overall RPM, but the RX140 fan beats the QX140 fan, at least on paper, in the static pressure and airflow ratings. One big difference between the QX and the RX series fans is on the RX series, the fan blade is slightly larger. The individual blades are slightly larger in addition to that. I think that's largely because there's no RGB lighting on the outer edge of the fan. They were able to expand it out and use that space. So I think that, in conjunction with the airflow vanes on the back, is what is contributing to the higher specifications that this fan achieves. But once you got your physical connections made to all your fans, go ahead and power up your PC. Now, even without iCUE being in control, the fan should be spinning and you should get some basic lights out of it. Just make sure everything's spinning and there's nothing obstructed in your case. Correct that as necessary, but once you are good to go and everything's running, get into Windows, install the latest version of iCUE if you haven't already. If you've got an older version on there, I recommend just always keeping that up to date. And then one of the first things you can do is it may come up and tell you that the iCUE Link hub needs an update. I recommend just go through and update anything that it tells you needs to be updated. Let it run, download that, get it updated. It may restart iCUE or it may restart your PC depending on what updates it needs to do. That's all fine and normal. But once you are back in there and everything is good, you can go into your hub, run the wizard there, let it detect what devices are out there. It probably has already done that, but I always just go in and rerun the wizard anyways. And then once that's done, you can go into the cooling section and you can create custom fan curves for each individual fan if you prefer. Basically, all your fans should be listed there. The drop down, you can select what fan curve. There's some preset ones built in, or hit the plus sign over to the left and you can custom create your own fan curve. You can base that on whatever temperature sensor you want, CPU, GPU. With the QX fans, if you have those, you can use the temperature sensors in the fans, so on and so forth. And then from there, you can base your fan curve on a fixed percentage, a fixed RPM, or you can create your own custom fan curve using all the sliders at the bottom. But you get complete control over that, and you can save that within profiles within iCUE, and you are good to go. As far as the lighting effects go, you get all of the standard lighting effects that you're familiar with Corsair. If you're not familiar with those, I'll flash those up on the screen here so that you can get a basic idea of what the effects are going to look like on these fans. Of course, you can custom create all your own lighting effects within iCUE. That's one of the cool things that iCUE does. You can custom create different lighting effects. You can turn on each individual LED and put it into whatever implementation you want. These, of course, play nice with iCUE Link, which means if you have other devices in the system with iCUE, you can implement that as well. And if you haven't checked out the video, I did a video recently. But overall, the RX120 fan, I think, is a great option to have right alongside the QX120 fans. For pure aesthetics, I think the QX120 fan is still the better fan. It looks better, it's got some additional options, but it is substantially more. So if you're just really looking performance, maybe with a little bit of RGB, but you don't care about the sensors and time warp, and honestly, those are features that I don't use all that often anyways. But if the look of this is kind of what you're going for, at least on paper anyways, this is a better spec fan. It's got better pressure and better airflow rating, and it should be completely suitable behind any of the radiators. And I think for the majority of cases out there, this fan will be just fine in the cooling department. And it's not bad looking on top of that. It's not discounted. It is a great looking little fan. But I'll get these installed in the Musetex case back here, and we can kind of take a look at what it looks like with a complete complement of 9 fans here. But overall, I think it's a cool little fan. I think it's great that Corsair is releasing some additional options for iCUE Link, and even some cheaper options, because it is kind of an expensive system to get involved with. But anyways, that is going to do it for the RX120 fan today. As always, thanks for watching. I will see you in the next one.